Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. You think you are in control. You think your decisions, your reactions, your love, your anger, they belong to the adult you. But the truth is far darker, far simpler. The child you once were still moves your hands, still shapes your words, still dictates the rhythm of your heart, hidden behind layers of logic and reason. It waits. Silent, patient, watching, pulling strings you don't even see. Imagine a marionette dancing across a stage, each movement precise, deliberate, but the puppeteer invisible, unseen, whispering instructions from the shadows. That puppeteer is your inner child, guiding you, warning you, punishing you, rewarding you, all without your conscious permission. And yet you believe you are free. Every argument, every moment of irritation, every pang of jealousy or fear, these are not random. They are not signs of weakness. They are echoes of childhood, whispers of wounds that were never soothed. When someone cancels plans, your stomach knots, not just because of inconvenience, but because the child inside remembers the times you were left waiting, unheard. When your partner criticizes, your heart flinches and anger erupts. Your inner child is defending itself from a lifetime of unmet needs. When a friend drifts away, you feel abandoned, not just by them, but by every moment your younger self learns to survive alone. The adult thinks it is rational. The adult thinks it is a choice. But behind the curtain, the child dictates the script, rewriting your reality in the language of fear and longing. And yet, you cling to the illusion of control. You reassure yourself, I am strong. I am composed. I chose this. But take a moment, recall the last time you lost your temper over something trivial, or froze when someone unexpectedly criticized you. That freeze, that flare, that knot in your stomach. It was not the adult speaking. It was the small, frightened version of you, repeating patterns ingrained long before reason ever arrived. You are the parent, the friend, the lover. But first you are the child you never comforted. Every decision you call rational is filtered through memories, through fears, through the quiet shadows of need. The tension grows when you realize that you have been dancing to a rhythm you never chose. Life seems linear, predictable, controlled, but underneath currents of old grief, shame, and longing flow, carrying your adult self along like driftwood. You search for happiness, love, success, thinking they are outside of you, not knowing the currents within have already decided your path. The shadows of yesterday, the echoes of a small voice ignored, continue to shape today. Recognition is painful because it is honest. You have been guided by someone you cannot see, someone you do not trust, someone you have not yet healed. And still there is a way forward. First, you must look, truly look, and name it. The silent puppeteer is real. The strings are real. The shadows are real. You are not broken. You are informed. You are alive. And the first step to freedom is acknowledgement, not denial. Your past still whispers in your present. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Carl Jung. You wear a mask every day. Not a literal one, but a mask forged from longing, fear, and a small, unmet child inside you. You seek approval, praise, validation, anything that tells you, even for a fleeting moment, that you are enough. At work, you overachieve, chasing promotions and compliments, thinking these accolades define your worth. On social media, you curate a life that sparkles in filtered light, hoping likes and comments will fill the hollowness left behind by childhood neglect. Every word you speak, every action you take, is shadowed by the subtle, desperate plea of a child who once felt unseen. Mirrors, become instruments of scrutiny, reflecting not reality but the versions of yourself you believe others want to see. The approval you chase is never purely adult. It is the inner child's quiet whisper, still asking to be loved, still terrified of being invisible. It is not weakness, it is survival. And yet, in every glance, every well done, you risk trading authenticity for the fleeting illusion of safety. You chase what cannot be caught. You fall for people who cannot truly meet you, chase dreams that may never satisfy, seek love that constantly slips through your fingers. The inner child is relentless, tugging at your heart like a shadow that stretches endlessly before the sun. You remember that first crush, that longing glance from someone who didn't notice, that friendship that ended too soon. The echoes of those moments shape your adult patterns. You are drawn to unavailable partners, to situations that promise connection but deliver distance. Every failed attempt becomes proof that love is conditional, that closeness is fleeting, and that you must keep running. Yet the chase is endless because it is not about them, it is about the child inside, trying to rewrite a past that cannot be undone. Recognition is painful. You realize the shadows you chase are mirrors of wounds, not true paths to fulfillment. And then there is comfort, the one that feels warm but burns underneath. Food, scrolling, alcohol, binge-watching, routines repeated like a lullaby that numbs rather than heals. You tell yourself these things soothe you, that they fill the empty corners of your mind. But comfort in this form is betrayal disguised as safety. It is a shadow pretending to be a home. Your inner child cheers at first, relieved by distraction, soothed by temporary calm. But tomorrow, the ache returns, louder, sharper, demanding attention it was never given. Habits become chains, addictions become walls, and routines become prisons. You are trapped in cycles you call normal, when in reality they are the echoes of a child's unmet needs. Understanding this is both terrifying and liberating. Terror at the chains you carry, liberation in knowing that recognition is the first step toward freedom. The illusions of love, of approval, of comfort, they were never real in the way you needed them to be. They were tools, shadows, mirrors reflecting what you longed for but could not claim. And now, seeing clearly, you have the chance to turn toward truth, to meet your child, not with masks or chasing, but with care, with presence, with reality. Comfort is a shadow, not a home. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Carl Jung. Some wounds are not yours alone. They travel through generations, invisible yet potent, carried in silence and unspoken rules. The anger your parents never released, the fear your caregiver suppressed, the disappointment they hid behind a smile, all of it resides within you, shaped into the small waiting child that still inhabits your heart. You may have thought you were free, that your choices are solely your own, but these inherited patterns whisper to you, guide your reactions, shape your desires. Perhaps you notice how you overprotect, overreact, or overcompensate, mirroring behaviors that first lived in someone else's house, in someone else's pain. Your inner child absorbs, adapts, and stores these emotional inheritances, replaying them when the world presses the same buttons. Empathy becomes complicated. Anger erupts unexpectedly. Anxiety tightens the chest for no apparent reason. You are carrying ghosts. And in carrying them, you are not weak, you are human. Recognizing these inherited wounds is not accusation, but illumination. It is the moment you see clearly how shadows of the past travel forward, directing movements you assumed were free. And yet, the most deceptive part of these shadows is how seamlessly they steer your life. You wake up believing you are making rational choices. You negotiate, debate, plan, But before consciousness arrives, the storm inside has already moved. A client's criticism, a friend's casual remark, a partner's forgotten promise. Before you can analyze, before logic can step in, fear surges, anger flares, or retreat begins. It is a storm steering the ship, invisible winds shaping the course without your notice. This is not a moral failure, it is a survival mechanism honed in the quiet moments of childhood when safety was never guaranteed. Every reactive word, every defensive wall, every abrupt withdrawal is the inner child acting out of old patterns, believing it is keeping you safe. Adult reason is late to the conversation, often powerless to counter the force of stored emotional memory. And still, there is potential for awareness. The storm is not eternal. It can be met, understood, and guided. You simply must recognize its presence before it commands the helm. Then comes the mirror of pain. Look around at your relationships, the conflicts, the recurring disappointments, the moments where you feel misunderstood, rejected, or unappreciated. Each of these echoes a drama from long ago, replayed with new actors on a familiar stage. Perhaps you feel abandoned by a partner, only to realize the fear echoes a time when a caregiver left the room, emotionally unavailable. Perhaps anger erupts over criticism that seems trivial, yet it mirrors years of silent judgment and unmet expectation. The patterns repeat, relentless and cinematic in their intensity. Parents who argued, friends who betrayed, teachers who dismissed. The child remembers. The adult often cannot see this connection. Life feels random, cruel, and repetitive. But the moment of awareness is transformative. By recognizing the mirror, you begin to break the loop. You understand that your reactions are not arbitrary, that your pain is not new, it is ancient, inherited, and still demanding acknowledgement. Facing this mirror is uncomfortable, even terrifying, but it is the doorway to mastery, the first step in claiming agency over a life long steered by shadows. Your shadow is not invisible. It speaks in impulses, guides through emotion, and shapes before thought arrives. When you act without understanding, when patterns repeat without conscious choice, it is your inner child, carrying inherited wounds, steering the ship. Awareness is liberation, recognition is power. Your shadow speaks before you think. Every form of addiction is an attempt to fill a void left by a childhood that was never completed. Carl Jung. You have always believed that you are strong. You have built walls of composure, worn armor of pride, polished the surface of control so carefully that no one, not even yourself, could see the cracks beneath. And yet, there comes a moment, a flash of life, so small yet so precise, where the illusion shatters. A careless word, a forgotten promise, a perceived slight. Suddenly, the adult facade crumbles. Your hands tremble, your voice falters, your chest tightens. You feel exposed, naked in the storm of emotions that were always there, quietly waiting. The inner child steps forward, uninvited, unmasked, and for the first time in years, you recognize that your so-called strength was conditional, a fragile construct built to survive and to hide the small, scared self within. Perhaps it happens in an argument with a partner, when years of unspoken needs surface as tears and rage, or at work, when criticism pierces deeper than it should, leaving you raw, stunned, questioning your own competence. This shattering is cinematic in its intensity, dramatic in its effect, because it exposes what you have long denied, that you are and always have been a child operating beneath the veneer of adulthood. And then the fragmentation begins. Suddenly, you are not one self, but many. You are the composed adult, trying to negotiate reason and logic. You are the wounded child, screaming, pleading, retreating into corners of fear long abandoned. You are the shadow simmering with anger, resentment, and confusion, reflecting the parts you refuse to name. It is like looking into a hall of shattered mirrors. Each fragment shows a version of you, each reflection distorted by memory, hurt and longing. You feel pulled in multiple directions at once, every choice weighted with the echoes of the past. You try to piece yourself together, but every attempt reveals more splinters, more contradictions, more unresolved pain. The experience is disorienting, almost unbearable, yet profoundly revealing. You are forced to acknowledge the multiplicity within, to see yourself not as a single, coherent entity, but as a mosaic of experiences, shadows, and needs that have never fully spoken. Facing this chaos is terrifying. Your mind races to impose order, to rationalize, to retreat into familiar habits, yet nothing holds. The anxiety rises, like waves crashing over the fragments of your identity, and the panic that comes with recognition is electric and inescapable. You may feel lost in your own skin, disconnected from the adult you thought you were, and unable to soothe the child screaming beneath. But this is the doorway to awakening. In the midst of panic, clarity arrives. The only way to rebuild is not to suppress, not to ignore, but to confront, to sit with the chaos, to listen to the child, to meet the shadow, to finally understand that what feels like collapse is in fact a necessary unraveling, an opening that allows the pieces to be seen, understood, and eventually integrated. The disorientation is a signal, a guide, pointing toward wholeness that can only be achieved when the child within is acknowledged, held, and comforted. You are not falling apart. You are being seen. You are not losing control. You are uncovering what was always there, waiting for recognition. And in this raw, fragmented state lies the possibility of true resilience, a strength forged not in denial, but in intimate confrontation with the self. You cannot outrun the child within. Children are educated by what the grown-up is, and not by his talk. Carl Jung, you believed it was love. You believed that praise, affection, or approval were constant, unconditional, and forever. But when the child within learns early that love must be earned, that approval is conditional, a seed of doubt takes root. Perhaps you remember moments when your best efforts were met with indifference, or your achievements only mattered if they aligned with someone else's expectation. The smile you sought, the hug you longed for, the simple acknowledgement of existence, all came tethered to rules you did not create. Performance became the price of acceptance. Obedience became the currency of safety. The child inside you learned early that worth is measured by compliance, that love is not freely given, but rationed, conditional, and fragile. And so you carried this understanding into adulthood, unconsciously seeking approval in relationships, jobs, friendships, forever chasing what can never be unconditional because it was never meant to be. You learned to misread the world, seeing rejection where there was only structure, interpreting guidance as criticism, perceiving discipline as denial. Your adult mind blames itself. I am too sensitive, too flawed, too unworthy. Yet the truth is different. The fog that clouds your mirror, the confusion, the self-doubt, the constant second-guessing was placed there long ago, not by your failings, but by misaligned love. A parent's control was not personal malice. A teacher's impatience was not a reflection of your inadequacy. A friend's absence was not a verdict on your worth. You were navigating a map designed by childhood survival, not by adult clarity. Misinterpretation became a habit, and self-blame became default. Seeing this for what it is, a survival mechanism, not a moral failing, is liberating, painful, and clarifying all at once. And yet, recognition brings hope. Understanding these patterns, naming the misalignments, separating the childhood rules from adult reality, This is the first step toward freedom. The child inside you no longer has to chase conditional love. As an adult, you can begin to give it freely to yourself, to set boundaries without guilt, to love without fear of withdrawal. Healing begins when you realize that what you once mistook for love, the control, the praise, the conditional attention, was never love in the way you needed it. It was survival, adaptation, a way to navigate a world that could not yet hold you fully. In this recognition, there is power. In this acknowledgement, there is liberation. You are no longer bound by illusions. You are no longer serving rules you did not create. You are free to rewrite the story. What you mistook for love was only survival. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Close your eyes. Imagine the small child who lives inside you, the one who was hurt, overlooked, silenced, or abandoned. See them sitting in the corner of a room you thought was empty. Their eyes are wary, their hands trembling, their voice a whisper barely heard over the noise of adulthood. This is not a metaphor, it is a truth within you. For decades, you have ignored this child, shoving them aside as you climbed, achieved, survived. But empowerment begins when you finally turn and face them. Imagine kneeling down, offering your presence, your attention, your recognition. Feel their small shoulders relax as acknowledgement enters the room for the first time. See the fear soften in their eyes, hear the hesitancy turn into tentative trust. In this cinematic moment, the inner child is not a liability but a guide. They carry the key to emotions you have denied, to patterns you have repeated unconsciously, to pain that still shapes your decisions. This step is tender, intimate, yet intensely powerful, because to face the wounded child is to reclaim the first layer of yourself you ever lost. And then you meet the shadow. It is not pleasant. It lurks at the edge of your vision, a dark figure shaped from anger, fear, resentment, and sorrow. You may have tried to suppress it, ignore it, or pretend it does not exist, but here it is, persistent and patient. Imagine walking into a dense, dark forest where every rustle of leaves reminds you of pain you buried long ago. Step by step, you move forward, trembling, cautious, yet determined. You shine the light of awareness onto the shadows, revealing their form, listening to their story. Every fear has a root, every anger a history, every ache a name. Dialogue with your shadow is not confrontation, but understanding. You recognize that these parts of you are not enemies, but neglected allies, waiting for acceptance. You integrate them, allowing their energy to inform rather than control, to guide rather than punish. The forest no longer seems impenetrable. Light breaks through the branches, illuminating paths once hidden by fear and denial. Finally, you claim ownership. Empowerment is not found in denial or suppression. It is found in conscious recognition of all parts of yourself. The tender child, the angry shadow, the cautious adult. You learn to nurture what was neglected, to listen to what was silenced, to direct the energies that once ran you unconsciously. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, seeing yourself whole for the first time, every scar, every tremor, every imperfection recognized and held with compassion. You make choices from awareness rather than reaction, act from presence rather than avoidance, and care for yourself in ways the child is always needed, but never received. This is the power of meeting your shadow. It is not violence, it is not control, it is not conquest, it is conversation, acknowledgement, and care. When you embrace this truth, the small frightened child, the anger, the fear, they all become allies, informing your life rather than dictating it. You are no longer a victim of old patterns. You are a parent to yourself, a guide to your own survival, a conscious agent of change. You are the parent your child needs. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside? Dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Carl Jung. The storm has passed. The winds of fear, anger, and doubt that once raged unchecked within you have calmed. Light filters through the clouds, scattering shadows across the landscape of your mind. It is not sudden, nor complete, but it is unmistakable. Clarity has arrived. You see your life with a new lens, one shaped not by reactive impulses but by awareness, choice, and understanding. Decisions that once felt dictated by old pain now appear as paths you can consciously take. Emotional clarity is cinematic in its arrival, a slow sunrise breaking over dark hills, illuminating cracks and scars not to shame you but to reveal the contours of growth. In this moment, you recognize that chaos is not permanent, that inner peace is possible, and that you hold the power to choose it every day. With this clarity comes transformation in your relationships. You no longer cling to patterns rooted in fear, longing, or the unmet needs of childhood. Boundaries are no longer walls of anger, but carefully placed markers of self-respect and care. You approach connection not with neediness, but with presence. Conflicts are no longer triggers for unconscious reactions, but invitations to communicate, understand, and heal. Love becomes possible in its true form, reciprocal, respectful, and authentic. Friends, partners, colleagues, all are now seen and engaged with clarity, rather than through the distorted lens of old wounds. You find freedom in choosing who to invest your energy in, recognizing when to let go, and understanding that true connection cannot exist where the child within feels unsafe or unheard. And the inner child, once a shadowed guide of fear and confusion, becomes an ally. Their sensitivity, imagination, and depth, once sources of chaos, now inform your adult choices. You listen to their voice without being enslaved by it. Honor their emotions without letting them dictate every action, and allow their creativity to fuel growth and joy. The child within is no longer screaming, demanding, or hidden. They are integrated, trusted, and cared for. Their presence enriches your experience of life, offering insight, intuition, and emotional resonance you could not access before. In this way, peace is not the absence of the past, but the conscious integration of it. The adult you guides, nurtures, and protects the inner child, and together you walk forward into a life chosen, not compelled by reaction or fear. Peace begins where the child no longer screams,